control.
Now, for more on the war between Russia and Ukraine, a global affairs analyst, Calvin Dack, joins me from Washington. Good to have you join us.
Good to be here.
So let's start with this, with a report coming from the Wagner Group saying that any moment that, they have surrounded the eastern part of Bakhmut. We also got a report from NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg saying any moment now, just in a matter of days, Bakhmut may fall to the Russian mercenary. Does that indicate the Russian positioning now in this war compared to earlier, where it seems to not have any sort of military, what I would call maybe mechanisms?
Yes, well, I think that one of the kind of important things to really put this in context is, the U.S. through our defense secretary had talked about how this Bakhmut would be more of a symbolic victory or loss for Russia and not really a strategic military one, which is why the U.S. and NATO allies have tried to encourage Ukraine to focus, more resources on other more strategic conflicts, the incoming offensive from Russia. But I think what we have to acknowledge is that symbolism means a lot, and that for the Ukraine, obviously, it's a symbolic measure, but also for Russia. And this is one of the few areas of war in Ukraine where Russia could claim victory or at least progress. So it's an interesting battle between, you have supporters of Ukraine talking about let's just move on, it's not strategic, but the Ukrainians and the Russians realizing that the symbolic measure could really affect the morale for this war going forward.
And now we're also seeing an outright criticism of the defense ministry by the leader of the Wagner Group, saying that it is now accusing the defense ministry of betrayal. What does this mean for Russia in this war? And do you think that the Wagner Group perhaps is trying to assert some level of authority in this war?
Well, I think the clearest message that this sends is that obviously Russia is using this group of mercenaries, the Wagner Group, to do things that its soldiers either can't or are not equipped to do. It speaks to the larger picture of the role of the Wagner Group in conflicts around the world, sowing instability, unfortunately, particularly in several places in Africa. But now when it comes to what influence they'll have over any kind of military strategy that the Russian military will be having, I think they could have influence, but I think the fact that we're hearing about it, that they're doing it publicly, shows that they don't have real influence because they're trying to influence the public pressure on the Russian military to change. If they really had the power, they would do this behind the scenes and we wouldn't really know about it.
And I like that you mentioned influencing the public pressure. But let's talk about this report. We saw a report by, I think it was the New York Times, saying that a Ukrainian group might be responsible for the attack on Nord Stream 2. We've also seen some protests against the government in Moldova, saying that they would actually prefer to be in Russia than being in Moldova. Many people or many strategies and analysts are saying perhaps this could be false flag operations by Russia. Do you agree with that?
I think there's evidence that that could be the case, and I think that one of the quotes that I read about these allegations is that regardless of what the truth is, it's distracting from the major point of this conflict and how it needs to come to an end. But if we think about the methods that Russia has employed, this false flag operation by them or anybody supporting them could definitely be the case. But I think that the main thing to focus on is that shouldn't be the focus, because it takes away from the fact that Russia's escalating and not de-escalating in this conflict.
Well, if this kind of rhetoric continues, especially the kind of rhetoric that comes with the attack on Nord Stream 2, so far Ukraine has enjoyed some kind of global support and global encouragement. Do you think that this could affect that kind of support that Ukraine has gotten globally?
Yes, I think it could, and I think because one of the the whole situation about talking about one thing is for sure. It shows the backers of Ukraine, the U.S., NATO allies, that this conflict is not ending anytime soon. And whatever commitment that the U.S. and NATO allies have towards Ukraine will be long term. So already you've got people in these countries, including my own, the United States, who are really thinking about what does it mean to have a long-term commitment to support Ukraine. So anything like with Nord Stream and that, some of the allegations we're talking about, that chips away at the support because people are now realizing this is not going to be ending anytime soon.
And talking about ending anytime soon, I was listening to the former president of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko, where he said that, look, in terms of diplomatic solutions to this war, Ukraine already has the best negotiators, and he was referring to the armed forces of Ukraine, and that for him, they are the best negotiators. He also talked about deputinizing Ukraine, deputinizing the world, and deputinizing Europe. And I wanted to ask, how much long? Because right now, as we speak, Estonia is trying to rally support for Ukraine to buy about 1 million artillery shells, and that has not happened yet. How long more will Ukraine continue to enjoy that support? And then what would a deputinized Europe look like?
Well, I think the question remains to be seen how long support's going to last. I don't think it's going to end anytime soon from the United States, for example, because we do have pretty influential voices, mostly from the Republican side, that are voicing concern about our long-term support. But I don't think that's going to be changing. And when it comes to the deputinizing of Europe, I think that's the goal. Because obviously Ukraine has its own goal, which is why a diplomatic solution isn't exactly what they want, because it would be giving up part of their territory. But for everyone around them, particularly our NATO allies, this is the goal, that Putin is no longer able to threaten in a realistic way any countries in Europe or our NATO partners.
Thank you so much for talking to us, Global Affairs Analyst Calvin Dark.
Thank you.